Dr. Thank you so much for being part of my chat today. Thank you. You're welcome to YouTube, my YouTube channel, Afrisent with BT. I'm so excited to have you because these past weeks, we've been talking about transitions and the reality of those transitions when you're in the diaspora, because we get excited. I'm going to America, I'm going to Denmark, I'm going to Australia. And then you get there, and then the reality of transitioning in terms of career, especially family and friends. And so today I will let you, who are you? What makes your heart beat? What makes you wake up in the morning? And to just give us your journey, I'll let you free flow. I'll ask a couple of questions here and there.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to be part of your live broadcast. Thanks for inviting me. It's always nice if something could help someone out there who is in a similar situation, and I guess that's why I'm doing this, just to help whoever it might be that might find this useful. So my name is Henry Sentongo. At the time I went to medical school, I think you were 1 year or so, below our, below our cohort. Yes, and we were good friends in medical school. So, and that has carried over all these years. So, yeah. So,
I'm so grateful. Not really.
Yes. So, at any rate, we went through med school, graduated from Makerere in Uganda, did internship in Uganda, completed that, and then had to sit for the USMLE, which is the United States Medical Licensing exams.
Do we have any examination centers that people can use in Uganda to sit for these exams? So to become a doctor in America, you have to have completed your MBCHB degree in Uganda, in your country of residence, Uganda, wherever you are. And then how do you apply? Because even the physicians here, once they are done with their residence, they must sit for these exams, right?
Yes. It cuts across the board. Everyone must do the USML. It starts out at ecfmg.org, which is this licensing body that was created to help international medical or foreign medical graduates navigate the process of transitioning from wherever they're coming from to work in the US. So that's where you go and register. You can actually start this as a medical student. So, the registration process is pretty straightforward. You'll have a bunch of questions to answer that relate to, when you went to school. There'll be steps to verify that you actually went to school. So there'll be letters sent back and forth between that ECFMG organization and the dean's office. So once all that checks out, they usually want primary source verification. So this is mail that will be sent directly to them, and they'll send it directly to the med school, that kind of thing. Once you get registered, then you can actually pick out step one. Those exams include step one, and then they have step two, CK, which is clinical knowledge, and then CS, which is clinical skills. And then there's also a step three, but step three is not required for you to get that ECFMG certificate, which is what you need basically to. So the purpose of doing all these exams is so you can get an ECFMG certificate. That ECFMG certificate then makes it possible for you to apply for residency. So in a nutshell, these exams just take preparation. You just have to take time, study. There's actually a Facebook group that was created by a bunch of Ugandans who have gone through this process, and it's actually called UGSMLE, and it's very helpful because you get to meet people who are actually going through the process. I did this, it's almost 10 years now. So what I remember may not be as relevant as what's happening now, because actually I think due to the COVID pandemic, there was talk about getting rid of that step 2 CS, the clinical skills. That's the exam that you actually have to come to the US to do. But with the difficulty that came up traveling for everyone during the pandemic, they had to rethink the whole thing and see whether it's really needed. So actually, that's a good point. I don't know what's up with that right now. I don't know if it was actually eliminated or it's still part of the requirement. So anyway, going back to that other question of whether we have centers in Uganda, yes, we do. You should be able to sit for step 1 and step 2 CK in Uganda. The centers are called Prometric. They're basically independent centers that help provide monitored examinations, not just for the USMLE, but for other things as well. GRE for those pursuing, master's degrees and graduate level education, English tests, all that stuff, IELTS and what's the other one? There's another one, TOEFL, yeah. Yes, and so many other professional examinations in engineering and all that. So this center is just there to help give monitored examinations, pretty much.
Where is the center? Where in Uganda is the center?
Yeah, so at the time when I did this, it was on Uganda House. It was on the 8th floor of Uganda House. Okay. Was that? Yeah. But I've heard since then that it's moved to Nakawa, the Nakawa area. Okay. Near Mobs somewhere. I can't speak to it, but at that time, and I know we still have a function of Prometric. If you were to just do a quick Google search, it would definitely come up. Okay. So and it's very streamlined. What I think is tends to be, I have a lot of friends who have done this, and that part where you get registered, it helps to really have someone helping you follow up, trying to make sure that when the mail comes, because just think about it, how much mail comes to the dean's office. Yes. And you have to have someone trying to make sure people are paying attention to your mail and taking care of it and sending it back.
Henry, let me pause for a minute. I'm so sorry because the network was so horrible at the beginning that we missed the whole first part, right? So forgive me, I'm going to yes, we did. Yes. So I'm going to just backtrack. So you can start applying for these 2 exams. There's 2 exams. Well, there's 3 exams that are required for you to be able to
get that ECFMG. Yeah, to get the ECFMG certificate so you can apply for residency. Yes.
So the ECMG certificate is what you need to apply for what? For residency.
Yes.
And you need 3 exams, 2 theory, 1 practical.
Yes. You need step 1 and step 2 clinical knowledge, and then step 2 clinical skills. But I put a caveat on that because I should have looked this up before coming on. Like I said, during the
times have changed. Same with me. Like it's been 11 years, and it's changed.
Yeah, but this change, if there is a change, it has to be recent. It relates to the pandemic. The pandemic made it so hard for anyone to travel. These exams, that clinical skills exam is really an exam where you meet simulated patients. And you're supposed to examine them and write notes and move on to the next, that kind of thing. But obviously that was very hard to do with the pandemic. So they had to come up with alternative ways to examine people. So I don't know what's going on with that
How
at the
much would it
moment.
cost? How much
So
on average will
yeah,
people need to
so
go to the website and find out the actual cost? But on average,
yeah,
then 10 years
on
ago.
that. Oh, 10 years ago, that CS exam was $1,200 to register.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
For the
1,200, but
1,200 for both exams.
no, the other first two are actually a bit cheaper. They were in the range of
Oh.
$800 each. Yes. So $800 to for step one, $800 for step two CS. Now these exams, I think the cost is relatively high for anyone at that level, because these are all day exams. Okay, the first exam is 8 hours, really 8 blocks. Yeah, and you have an hour to do each block. No, actually, 8 blocks, but you spread them out and then you have breaks in between. And the second exam is like 9 hours. Okay, and they have to pay the staff at the prometric station. They have to so the cost is spread out. It's not price gouging by any means.
Yes.
Yeah, because they're paying a third party to there's video monitoring the whole time you're doing this, and there's people watching you, so all those people have to be paid. So but then, that clinical skills used to really be expensive, because you had to factor in travel. You had to travel here, you had to stay somewhere, you had to, all those things. Yes. And then step three, which, you can do later, although, I did it all together, is actually a 2-day exam, 2 days. And it's, I think, 9 hours the first day and maybe 8 hours the second day.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. But for if you're up these days, I think the J1 visa is the difference. The reason why we had to rush to do step 3 was to try and get an H1B visa, as compared to a J1 visa, which you
What's the difference? What's the difference between the H and the J?
So the J1 visa is an exchange student visa. It's easy to get. It's cheaper to get. It only requires you to have the ECFMG certificate. I think it was something like less than $500. Okay. Now this varies program by program. Most programs that accept foreign medical graduates, the most popular ones, in the New York area, in the Northeast generally. So, you're talking New York, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, New Jersey, that whole general area, even, including Maryland and all that. A lot of those programs, so, we're trying to compare and contrast J and H, right?
J and H,
so,
yes.
Yeah, so the J visa turned out to be a lot cheaper, cheaper upfront, I'll say, because, you could get it processed for under $500. Okay. ECFMG basically sponsors you for that visa, and then you have to go home and get a letter of need from the Ministry of Health in Uganda, and then that's it. You go get that visa. Okay, that's if you have a residency position already. That's the first step. You've gone through the match. Yeah, we are skipping ahead here, but
keep going. I will recap everybody.
Yeah. So then the H1B visa is a skilled immigrant visa, and it's not just for residents. It's also for engineers. It's a very popular visa that a lot of skilled labor, skilled people coming to provide skilled labor need to have an H1B visa, and that spans the whole STEM science, tech, everyone. So that's an expensive visa because you need a lawyer, an immigration lawyer, to file an H-1B petition for you. Now, there's some programs that will actually cover the cost, but most of those programs I was referring to in the Northeast actually tend to pass the cost on to the applicants because, their budgets don't allow for that type of thing.
Yes.
However, there's other programs, especially, programs in states, especially in the Midwest, that will cover the cost. But the Northeast, my experience was most of the people I talked to had to pay to get that process. Now, you're talking, at least $1,500 for the lawyer. If you need premium processing, which most of the times you do $2,500 just for the lawyer, and then there's the fees for filing. So around $3,000 to be safe is what you needed to get an H-1B visa. Now, that looks expensive up front, but it's actually a better option because when you're done with residency, you don't have limitations. When you do your residence on a J1 visa, when you graduate, there are two rules. Okay, you need a waiver if you want to stay in the US, which most people want to stay. You either have to go back home for 2 years and then come back after that, or you have to get a waiver. And most of these waivers require you to work at least 3 years in an underserved area. So, at that time, you might want to leave, wherever you might want to live, but that might not work out because you actually have to go to an underserved area. So then it ends up being expensive in that regard, having to do 3 years in a small town somewhere. But that's not always bad, the US.
That's what I was going to
say. Yeah, that's not always bad. I mean, there's many good small towns. We could speak of, like I know Massachusetts very well. So Lowell is an underserved area. Yeah, it is.
Know. But the funny thing is because UMass has put a campus down there. It's like their real estate is premium these days because the student life has taken over. Before the school put a campus there, that was really an underserved place. Or Worcester, for example.
So I mean, they're not bad places. So anyway, that's skipping ahead to the immigration process, and
which is important.
Which is probably really, really important. I've had a few friends who, during the process, because most of us travel here to do that clinical skills exam on a B1, B2, visitor's visa. And, if there's any advice that I can give anyone is just don't ever violate your immigration, no matter what you do. Just, it doesn't matter how brilliant you are, how well you did on the exams. You might have the best scores in the world, the best CV, you've done PhDs or whatnot. If you violate your immigration status, no one wants to hire you. No one wants to look at you. No one wants to do anything with you.
Because they don't want the liability of dealing with law. Oh my God. So if you come, so what you're suggesting is that because we have junior clerkship, would you say 4th year is a good time for you to start? Or would you say finish your 5th year because you must graduate in Makerere? For example, we'll talk about Makerere because, we're from Makerere. But so do you advise, because it's intense, medical school is intense. So do you advise that somebody finishes their 5 years properly? And then the good thing is we have the 5th year of internship, which is also very intense because basically interns and, SHOs are managing the hospitals. But during that time, you can juggle and sit for this exam. Would you advise that?
So the timing of when to do what is down to the person. You have to know who you are and whether
Mm-hmm.
you have it in you to multitask.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I started when I was a med student,
Mm.
um, and I was able to, study. I felt it gave me more time, and I was in the
Mm.
zone. When you're a medical student, you're in the zone.
Yes, you are scholar. Yes.
Yeah, so sometimes when you start to work, so there's both advantages and disadvantages. Sometimes when you start to work, there's different pressures. Uh, there's pressure to have an income, and people take on multiple jobs, multiple responsibilities.
Mhm. People have
Uh,
children, people marry. So
yes, yes,
like
yes.
that dynamic is a big one financially.
Yeah. So really, my advice would be, as
Mhm.
soon as you decide you want to do this, just start
Mhm.
right away. Yeah.
Okay.
But don't let it get in the way of what's immediately ahead of you. So, if you're a medical student,
Mm.
you have to get that MBCHB, because if you don't get it, then hey, this won't happen either, right?
Yes, yes.
So, yeah, just uh, prioritize. Most of us,
Mhm.
most people that end up in med school have it in them to do whatever they put their mind to.
They're already
Uh,
scholars. Yes.
yes, yes.
Yes.
So
That's a
it's
big.
it's really just a matter of deciding that you want to do this, and then choosing to pursue it.
Mhm.
I did most of my studying when I was in med school, but my older brother did his after he
Mhm.
had graduated from med school, and
Okay.
it both worked out. So there's no one size fits all, but
Mm.
it works whichever way you do it, as long as you do it right.
Okay. So
Yeah,
going back, so you finish your medical school, you apply if you live in Uganda or maybe anywhere, because this company Prometrics, Prometric centers, there might be another center maybe in Dubai, or try to
yes,
look online because they could have another center where you live. You don't have to
yeah,
necessarily be Ugandan. And
yeah,
so look for it and see the cost of applying for your first two exams, which are theory exams. Prepare intensely because it's going to cost you 8 hours of your life and 9 hours of your life for the second one. And
yeah,
then you must prepare financially to apply for, you could apply for a visitor's visa and and come and do your clinical exam, but be sure not to violate it. Return home if you haven't yet been able to get an externship. So of course for the H1 visa you need a sponsor, right? The H1
yeah.
visa. You need
So the H1B, yeah. So these are things, H1B, J1. Those are visas that you get after you've secured. These days, everything is in the match.
yes.
So, when I did mine, we had pre-matches. I actually had two pre-matches, and I had to choose. So,
What do you mean by
but
matches? What does that
so
mean?
in our days, you would go. So this is what happens. So you you submit your application.
Mm-hmm.
Once you meet all the requirements, meaning you've graduated from medical school
Mm-hmm.
and you have an ECFMG certificate,
Mm-hmm.
which the ECFMG certificate means that you've passed your exams.
Okay.
Then you apply.
Okay.
And the application, includes writing a personal statement and
Mm-hmm.
filling out a bunch of, all those things that they need. They're pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then it's a system. It's called ERAS.
Okay.
It's an electronic application system. So you spread out your applications to. Oh, and while we're at that,
Mm-hmm.
another kind of um, something I've learned interacting with foreign medical graduates is sometimes as you apply, the
Mm-hmm.
US has programs like, John Hop. It depends on the specialty
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to get into, but we have top university programs.
Yes.
Like, John Hopkins is one of them. We have UW. There's UCSF in California. There's So I'm listing all these top programs which we all probably know about and aspire to be part of. Uh, but just I mean, it's important to always maintain. Um, okay, let me put it this way. Okay, some people have, because it costs money to apply. Every single application you send will determine how much it will cost you. And I don't remember, but it might be to the tune of something like maybe it might be $100 per application. Okay, so if you have financial constraints and you have to choose where to apply to, because I have friends who only sent 10 applications, and the 10 applications were sent to the very top, programs in the country.
Oh my God.
You have to be very mindful that
yes, you have to be strategic.
That it's tough. It's tough to get into those. Yeah.
It's like applying for college, because if you do Ivy League schools only, and then none of them takes you, then the season is done and you're stuck home. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you really want to involve the top programs, be sure to have like 100 applications. Okay, but 100 applications means much more money. Yes. So if you're on a budget, be sure to include. There's lists out there of IMG friendly programs, as we call them, especially in New York, New Jersey, in the Northeast. And these tend to be community hospital programs that have affiliations with, city universities like, my program had an affiliation to Downstate, which is SUNY, State University of New York. And there's very many like that. My brother's residency position was affiliated with CUNY, which is City University of New York. So, but they were all, community hospital programs. At the end of the day, when you graduate, okay, so first, if you really have high aspirations to go to the Ivy League places, the most important thing is to get in. Yes. So if you're able to get in, there's always an option after your internship year, which is the first year, to switch. And you'll actually be in a better position to go to those programs if you've had some significant American clinical experience. This is just, advice that's general to everyone. But in reality, what ends up happening is that most of the foreign medical graduates end up, going to doing their residencies in these community hospital programs. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean, if I were to compare our clinical competence to, American grads, we're not any, matter of fact, we have that other experience, from Uganda. I did C-section in my internship. Yeah, and I'm a physician with internal medicine, and my colleagues have never ever done C-sections. We have amazing surgical experience. Not that it's relevant. I'm not doing C-sections now, but I did it. So yeah. So
I always say because I was trained in Uganda, but I feel like I remember Dr. Chiguli, she said, because I said, why do we have to learn all these things? They say every country trains based on their needs. So they train you in everything. So when you come here, it's a place of super specialization. You might not have that, but the matter of fact that you've really been trained well. So to have that confidence that no matter where you end up, you really do good, no matter where you had your education.
Right.
And I think what I'm hearing from you, Henry, is that because most people who end up in medical school are like, they've been top class, like number one in their classes, and so they're used to being the best. They're ambitious. Sometimes they have a lot of ego. That thought of going in a small community college, community hospital might be like, I want the very best. But then it's very competitive. And these two places, sometimes they're kids whose parents have donated like a wing to the hospital, and like for
Right.
sure that you might not have grades as good as yours, but their parents donated a wing to the hospital and their place is secured. So
Yes.
when somebody is applying, you're saying for their residence, they have to consider, yes, maybe put a few that you want to that are big, but don't close your minds to the smaller community places, because once you get in after the first year of residence, you might have a chance to apply to a bigger space like UCSF or John
Exactly.
Hopkins.
Exactly. So just or OHSU, or very so many top programs out there. But the thing is that just make sure, if your goal is to get in, have some of those community programs that are considered IMG friendly, because the record is clear. If you look at who went in, so every time you're about to apply to a program, browse their website, look at who are the current residents there, and there'll be a bio of everyone. So if you're
Yes.
looking at a program and there's just like one foreign medical graduate out of 30 residents, well, that's exactly your probability of getting in there. It's
Not
one
so
in 30.
dirty.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then if you browse another program, and it has 15 IMGs out of 20, or then, well, that your odds are better over there.
Yes.
Because you want things to move along. You don't want to have a year where you're waiting to apply for the next year because you missed out. Yeah. Well, the other thing that plays into that is, when you take your exams, it's important to have really high scores. At least it used to be. Again, on that, I saw a discussion coming through where they're trying to change these exams to pass fail. That would really change things.
Again,
but yeah, because there's been changes. Like 10 years ago when we did it, they even had like a 2-digit score.
Oh my God.
Yeah, after that they changed it to a 3-digit score. That's what's been there this last few years, and now they're talking about changing it to pass fail. But I don't know when that will happen.
And I
For
think
as long as there's still a score.
And I think it's just the reality of the fact that we have a shortage everywhere. Like we have a big gap of. I mean, my activism comes in when I think about like the cost of going to medical school here, right? The cost in terms of time, in terms of money, so fewer and fewer people are applying to school, even if they can mentally like go through medical school those 8 years. They're thinking about the cost, and so a significant number of people are not becoming physicians or not becoming nurses or radiologists or whatever because of the cost. So I guess it's a good thing, because then we get to have the people, because most times you learn on that job, but then it's also a scary thing, because I'm like, we better have competent people to touch us when we are 65, you know what I mean? So but carry on, yeah. So residence, you're done getting your certificate, you're applying for residence, you go through the website. I'm going to put everything on the link of this video. There's a particular website you mentioned where you can apply to the different multiple residences, but each application is going to cost you. And then to be mindful to choose your Ivy League hospitals, and then consider the community hospitals, but do your homework, because they do put a bio for every for the class, residents, and if there's more foreign educated physicians, chances are you get into that hospital. So consider that. And then
and always, I think a good number of applications to have is at least 50.
50?
Yeah, 50.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. And again, because sometimes we think about cost, but this is how I think about it. If you don't get in this year, you've lost a year of earning. Like, you could have gotten in and graduated a year early and made that money. So I think that's the way of also thinking about this cost. Like, okay, I'm investing, $3,000 and $800 here, but how much more am I going to earn? And the good thing is, coming from a foreign country like Uganda, chances are your parents, we've been lucky that our parents are big siblings, they pay for our tuition, that we come in without debt. So you really have an advantage, a leg up over the other residents who are coming in with a $300,000 debt. Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
And so once you get in, how do you choose which type of residence? Like, do you want to do internal medicine, surgery? How do you choose that?
So that, most people find their sweet spot during med school. As they do their rotation, they start to like one thing over the other. So so that's good. But it's been, something I've observed is that IMGs tend to get in easily into family medicine programs, internal medicine programs, for several reasons. One, those programs have the most number of positions.
Yes.
But the second thing is, and this might not apply to everyone watching, but our surgical training in Uganda. Well, we did all these great things, big incisions,
yes,
retractors, okay, retracts, and then then just patch it back up, and yes, you're good to go. But the surgical training here is laparoscopic and minimally invasive. That's not to say you can't learn all that, but
it's another curve you have to overcome.
Yes. Yeah. To be fair, the American grads clearly have a leg up on you there, and I think most program directors know that. I mean, you have 5 years. I mean, surgical residencies are 5 years plus.
5.
Yeah, and they're very tough to get into, even for American grads.
How long is that internal medicine, the residence? Is it 3 years?
It's 3 years, and then it opens up the opportunity for sub-specialization. I mean, you could do GI, cardiology, rheumatology. These guys know all this stuff. Yeah. But so should you do that, then it's an extra couple of years, depending on the subspecialty you choose. The other thing to know is that for those that are really targeting those other subspecialties and have a big passion for surgery or anesthesiology or whatever it is, there's something else called preliminary residency positions. There were positions created as a transition, pretty much. So you could do, your first year could be a preliminary position. So there's what they call categorical, and then there's what they call preliminary. So if you join a categorical program, you're going to stay with that program all the way through. It's very common for people pursuing surgery or neurosurgery or vascular surgery. And by the way, I know Ugandans, I know Maggie just matched in a vascular surgery program. We have friends that have matched in surgery programs, even neurosurgery, the toughest of the toughest. So you can do this if you set your mind to it, you can really do it. But it tends to be that you might join a program in a preliminary position. Usually this is like a 1 year or 2 year position that you join with the understanding that it's really temporary. You're going to match somewhere else for your second year or something like that. So that tends to be something that people do in order to get into those tough to get in specialties. Yeah.
But okay, and I mean, one of the things I guess one of the things people should be considering is also like life is not just about medicine, right? Because and it's hard to say that because already people who are in that field, they're used to being scholars, their job means so much or their school means so much that they prioritize that. But you have to really count the cost. It's like, I'm female and I'm a feminist, for the record, but I had my first child when I was 35, and how hard that, it's like my body couldn't take it, my mind couldn't take it. And I had the second one at 36, and it was really, really hard. So we have to consider these things, like if you're planning to go into a 5-year and then super specialize for 3 years, like if indeed what you want is to start a family, like I wanted to really have kids of my own, that's something you might want to think about. And then as an immigrant, the reality of practicing in these spaces, right? Like, I mean, America maybe is more open and people might be okay with someone with a name like, Sentongo, being the surgeon, the big surgeon. But these are things we must think about, like the workspace. Will we be able to handle those dynamics? Well, every now, if I could get $1 for every time somebody asks me, where are you from? And I remember as the bedside nurse, there was a physician who came into the room, and I was doing my night shift, and the patient asked, so where are you from? And the physician said, I'm from Texas. No, really, really, where are you from? I was born and raised in Texas. And I think because he knew exactly what the person was asking, when they asked at that time, they said, okay, my parents are originally from Iran, but I was born and raised in Texas. So I think those are things people really have to be mindful about. How have you found that space? Like kind of being like settling in, and the culture difference, and still being professional.
I think America is really diverse, especially if you end up practicing in
a metropolitan place.
Yeah, in a metropolitan place where it's always multicultural. You're going to have Latinos, African Americans. There's always a lot of Indians, and even within the nursing staff, there's Filipinos, and so it tends to be difficult for foreign medical graduates in smaller towns, because smaller towns tend to be less diverse.
That's true.
So those are things to factor in as you decide where you'll end up practicing, and this is after residency.
For residency, just go anywhere. Anyone who gives you accept.
And you're like, oh, show me where to sign.
Yes.
So I think there's a sweet spot for foreign medical grads, or at least in my experience, has been, an decent sized town. At least 200,000 people, at least, I think. You'll always have the right mix of people, and if you have the right mix of people in the town, then you'll have the right mix of patients, and then you'll have less of those, unpleasant encounters. So anyway, I don't know if there's questions or what. I think we've kind of haphazardly gone over everything.
So, Henry, the thing I will request, and I will bother you as we go through the week, just to kind of, I'll compile what we've talked about in text, and then I'll forward it to you, just to kind of say, okay, it looks good, so I can attach it to this video. So that people kind of have insight, because we have the people in our communities. Some have been lucky that their parents have applied and they've come already as graduates, and so they don't have to worry about the immigration process. But then we have many people who are considering moving because the economies where they are practicing right now have contracted, and they're thinking, okay, I need to move. And so I want to make sure that all the information that we share can kind of speak to both parties, and people who are trying to transition in one way or the other. So I do you have family?
I have kids, and it's what makes everything worth it, family makes a real complete and obviously in the times we live in, I'm very cognizant of the fact that it's not for everyone. Some people are perfectly happy without it, but
without it.
Yeah.
With that, Without doing that, no, seriously, I have a friend who said, I wish if I'd grown up away from Uganda, because Uganda is like, you have to be a parent. She would have chosen her career any day over. So I'm so grateful that we are in a space like America where it's okay. Like when you
Yeah.
choose your career over, having another human being, it's okay. Yeah, but
Yes.
anyway, thank you so much. I don't know if there's any other thing, because I know your time is short, but I don't know if there's any other thing that you would have wanted to share with us. So if we have any questions, we'll just keep adding them as comments attached to this video.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, once you make the decision to pursue this, you get in touch with like-minded folks, and if you do, then there'll be so many questions that come up along the way that can't just be addressed in just a
Yes.
one sitting. But
Mm,
there are so many people out there that will be happy to help, happy to guide you, happy to answer questions. And like I said, there's that community, at least for Ugandans, that
yes.
um, people who are doing this in the more recent years um, go there to find solutions. So
Mm,
if it works for them, I'm sure it will help you if you want to
yes.
do this. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Henry. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dr. SSentongo. You're
Yeah.
watching Accent with BT. If you see this video, please share. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. And if you're a professional out there, please, from not just Uganda, I know I'm interviewing only Ugandans because I'm from Uganda. And please, from Uganda, please comment below. We can interview you and make sure that we share your journey so somebody else can be able to benefit. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
Yeah.
I'll
Happy
let you go.
Thanksgiving.
I know. Happy Thanksgiving. Say hi to your babies and your bae, and thank
Yeah.
them for letting us share you with them today.
Yeah. All
All right.
right.
Bye
Have a
bye.
good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye bye.